Welcome to Apologetics and Prophecy, the official podcast of Calvary Solid Ground, a remnant church in Orangevale, California. I am Pastor Jed, and I will be your host as we bring you Bible studies and updates put through an apologetical and biblical lens to see just how close we are to the return of our Lord. Thank you for joining us today. Maranatha, everyone. So glad that you could join us for this Friday edition of Apologetics and Prophecy, where we are going to do a prophecy update as we do every week. And just a reminder that this will be the last prophecy update for the next few weeks, as I will be with my wife, Phyllis, will be joining Billy Crone and Mondo and Brandon Holhouse and some of the guys on a prophecy cruise. So we're looking forward to that. We're flying out on Tuesday morning to Turkey. So prayers would be much appreciated for this event. And we're looking forward to it. I'll be able to come back with a lot of information and a lot of new teaching and a lot of new things that I'm going to learn. And so we'll be using that in upcoming episodes. And so I thank you for that, for the prayers. And so we'll see you in a few weeks after today. But anyway, today's story, and it shouldn't surprise us, it seems to be the prophetic convergence is happening, and it's the story that never goes away. It's a story that never goes away. And of course, what is that? That's Israel. Israel seems to be in the news cycle. I can't even keep up with what's going on in Israel. And what's the Bible say? What's the Bible say that we can expect for these times that we're living in? And it says, just by way of reminder, in Zechariah 12, verses 1 through 3, the burden of the word of the Lord against Israel. Thus says the Lord, who stretches out the heavens, lays the foundation of the earth, and forms the spirit of man within him. Behold, I will make Jerusalem a cup of drunkenness to all the surrounding peoples, when they lay siege against Judah and Jerusalem. And it shall happen in that day that I will make Jerusalem a very heavy stone for all peoples. All who would heave it away will surely be cut in pieces, though all nations of the earth are gathered against it. So as we see, this prophecy in Zechariah written, over about 2,600 years ago, is coming to pass right before our eyes. I mean, it's the story that never goes away right now. These things are happening in Israel. And Joel would say the same thing in Joel chapter 3, verses 1 through 3. It says, "For behold, in those days and at that time, when I bring back the captives of Judah and Jerusalem, I will also gather all nations and bring them down to the valley of Jehoshaphat. And I will enter into judgment with them there on account of my people, my heritage Israel, whom they have scattered among the nations. They have also divided up my land. They have cast lots for my people and have given a boy as payment for a harlot and sold a girl for wine that they may drink." And so, but it's very interesting, when they have these big conventions where people will gather together to decide. The UN wants to come up with another idea of how to split the land up or force Israel into a two-state solution. And oftentimes in those areas that what do we see? We see a lot of prostitution and a lot of drinking and drug use in all of these places where the WEF meet, the UN meet, and that's because many of them are Luciferians. Some of them are just, useless idiots, but they're involved in sin, and that's what we see. But what are some stories? What are the story that never seems to go away? Well, of course, the big news this week is what happened on Tuesday when Iran decided to shoot, they say 400 missiles and only 181 got through, but it seemed like a big dud. But this article kind of gives us a little bit of highlight in that. It says, Israel threatens direct strikes on Iran's nuclear or oil facility. So that's the big thing. They said that if they get attacked, that they're going to retaliate. And it says, Israel reportedly conveys message to Iran saying it would retaliate by targeting strategic facilities in Iran for any strike on its territory, no matter how small or large. And Netanyahu had just got done quoting, "Iran has made a grave mistake." Israel has reportedly warned Iran of direct retaliation targeting its nuclear or oil facilities following Tehran's large-scale missile attack, the Wall Street Journal report Tuesday, citing Arab officials. The report claims that Iran has alerted regional Arab officials of its plan to launch a missile barrage, which prompted Israel to send a clear message saying it would respond to any attack on its territory, regardless of the scale or casualties. Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu declared Tuesday night that Iran had made a grave mistake and would pay the price for the attack. According to the IDF, Iran launched approximately 100 ballistic missiles, many of which were intercepted, though some hit various locations across Israel. So let's ask yourself, if if somebody's out to kill you and has a loaded gun and fires all its bullets but missed, and you've got a loaded gun, what are you going to do? You're going to say wait for the other person to reload, or are you going to make sure that he doesn't not miss next time? I mean, it's pretty obvious what the answer is. But here's a video that I want to show you. That's a time-lapse video taken from Jordan to show you the extent of what happened. Let's show you this. So there's a time-lapse picture of what happened, and but this is what it looked like. There were some that actually hit the ground, and this is what it looked like. Now, there was some property damage, but thank goodness there was no casualties except for maybe, I think there was a Jordanian and a person, an Arab in Jericho, that were killed by pieces that fell. Not by rockets themselves, but the pieces that fell after they were neutralized by the Iron Dome or Arrow system. And this one here is pretty scary to show you what it would look like. So you can see that this was what this strike was like, and it was, of course, taken from somebody's phone, as you can see here, and that it was, there was strikes that actually hit the ground. But surprisingly enough, the size of these ballistic missiles, you don't see much of an explosion behind them. The missiles that were the bombs that Israel is using are smaller than that are putting huge craters in the ground. But I thought this, my wife didn't like this one too much, but I thought it was quite kind of funny because it really does show you how this current administration and the one that's trying to come into power really sees Israel when these things happen. And this one here. I mean, we know that they talk a big talk, but behind the scenes they support Iran. This is the Obama 2.0 administration. We have Obama 2.3 or 3.0 that's trying to get into office, and they hate Israel and they love Iran. And so it shouldn't surprise us to see these things happening. But of course, and we know just by watching that video, this shouldn't surprise us. This story here that says Biden doesn't want Israel retaliatory strikes on Iranian nuclear sites. And of course not. They're the ones supporting Iran's nuclear ambitions. It says U.S. President Joe Biden doesn't back an Israeli retaliatory strike on Iran's nuclear strike, but has striven to build a broad international consensus for a response to the Islamic Republic's missile strike against the Jewish state on Tuesday. We'll be discussing with the Israelis what they're going to do, but all 7 of us, the G7 nations, agree that they have a right to respond, but they should respond proportionately. Yeah, I think 400 missiles, they can fire 400 missiles, right? But as long as they can all hit something, right? That'd be proportionate, right? But they don't see it that way. This is just their political language. Biden told reporters before boarding Air Force One. He said he would be speaking soon with Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu, but did not give a timeline for that call. Iran is way off board, he said. There are going to be some sanctions imposed on Iran, he stressed. Sanctions. Sanctions have not been working. The United States have been big on sanctions, and we'll see before we end this podcast that sanctions are worthless in a globe that is getting off the dollar. If everybody's using the U.S. dollar, then sanctions will work great. But when people are getting off the U.S. dollar, sanctions are worthless. They're kind of like this. This is about how effective the sanctions are that the United States imposes on its enemies. Right here, as you can see, these missiles were just duds. You know, can you believe that? You look at that picture and you're like, man, that thing hit the ground and didn't do anything. It's like skyrockets that hit the ground and just fizzle out. And so I don't know why I don't know, maybe the United States pressured them, why there wasn't any explosives on these ballistic missiles. You could literally put enough explosives to put a huge crater in the ground with this missile. But as you can see, they just hit the ground. And that's not really, but that's about maybe it was just that God protected them. We know it's miraculous that nobody was injured and nobody was killed, that no Jews were killed, no Israelis were killed. Some property was damaged, some buildings were blown up, but that's it. Lots of flying around debris that they have to clean up. It's a headache and a heartache, but and it's causing fear in the people that live there, but it's a miracle that these things were just duds. And so, this next story, though, shows us something that's happening that we shouldn't be surprised because it's biblical, and that is Erdogan warns of war between Israel and Turkey, which I sure hope doesn't happen because I'm flying to Turkey on Tuesday. So maybe I won't be flying to Turkey on Tuesday. Turkish President Erdogan warned of war between Israel and Turkey in a speech at the opening of Parliament on Tuesday, saying the Israeli leadership, acting with the delirium of the promised land with a purely religious fanaticism, will set its sights on our homeland after Palestine and Lebanon. So they're saying that, he's saying that, Israel's going to come after us next. Erdogan said that the Zionist Greater Israel Project includes Turkey and added the Netanyahu government harbors a disillusional ambition, including Anatolia, and pursues a utopia. And it reveals these intentions on various occasions. Since the October 7th, every development increases the dimension of this threat a little more. So he somehow thinks that Israel's going to come after Turkey. So maybe Turkey preemptively gets involved. But we also know that Turkey will join a coalition with Russia and Iran according to Ezekiel 38. So right after the killing of the Hezbollah commander, what do we see this meeting that happened here? And this is Russia, Turkey, and Iran meeting together on what to do about Israel. And I think it's very interesting if you see the picture in the background. I'm not sure if that's a picture supposed to be of Jesus, But it's just interesting, though. Russians are Eastern Orthodox, and I think that's a famous Eastern Orthodox painting in the background. But Russia is meeting with Turkey and Iran, just like the Bible predicted. And what are they talking about? What to do about Israel. So, man, I'm telling you, we are living in the last days. It's amazing. It's the story that never goes away, and it will not go away until Jesus comes again and sets his kingdom up here on the earth. And we know all these things are being set up. And we know that, as we read earlier, that anti-Semitism will be, all the nations will gather against Israel. So we shouldn't be surprised when we see this story. UN votes to ethnically cleanse Jerusalem of Jews, following in the footsteps of the king of Sodom. This Israeli 365 News says last week the United Nations General Assembly passed a resolution that would ethnically cleanse Jerusalem's old city and the biblical heartland in an attempt to erase the biblical and historical connections that tie the Jewish people to their eternal capital and the site of the temples. The resolution was the first that the state of Palestine filed after being granted unprecedented privileges for a non-UN member earlier this year, and was sponsored by more than 40 countries. 124 nations supported the resolution, only 14 nations opposed it, and 43 abstained. The resolution came to bolster the advisory opinion by the International Court of Justice made in July, which declared Israel presence be illegal in any area over the 1949 armistice line. The resolution also called for the IDF to withdraw entirely within 12 months from the occupied Palestinian territory, which includes Judea and Samaria, eastern Jerusalem, and the Gaza Strip. This includes a withdrawal from all airspace and maritime space. It also bans arms sales to the IDF of any equipment that would be reasonably expected to be used in the territory over the 1949 lines, and calls for a boycott of all products produced by Jews in those areas. So, that's exactly what we would expect to see. And, you would think, this is Friday. And this is when the Muslims meet. They have their Friday meeting. And this was at one of their meetings. I think this is Tehran Square, but I'm not sure. But listen to what they're chanting. I'm not sure if it's in English or not, but you'll get the picture. Death to Jews. That's what they're saying. Death to the Jews, death to America. And no matter, these aren't people that you can make sanctions with. And so, but our countries know better. I mean, they talk the talk like they support Israel's right to defend herself. But really, what is the federal government doing? And this story shows us their anti-Semitic behavior. That little video might be offensive to some people because we're making fun of the current administration and the possible next administration. But the point is that's exactly how they feel, because, we can tell by their actions, by their fruits, we know them. And look at this story. This tells us right here, federal agency funds campus event celebrating Islamic terror and October 7th. They talk about how horrible October 7th is, then, with their mouth, but with their hands, they're handing money out to people to do these anti-Semitic, demonic events, right? It says, while the media, once 1 year since Alaska flood, reflections of a year of genocide and resistance. That's what they're calling it. While the media has been attacking Trump over his pro-Israel speech, this is what a federal agency is comfortably funding under the Biden-Harris administration. Wake Forest students at the Hillel and Chabad student executive boards created an online petition earlier this week urging the administration to cancel an event scheduled for October 7th featuring speaker Rabad Abaluthadi. I don't know who that is. The petition, which has gathered over 7,000 signatures, pushes for the event to be canceled due to claims of this guy spreading anti-Semitic rhetoric and supporting Hamas. Hamas. The event is titled 1 Year Since Alaska Flood, Reflections on a Year of Genocide and Resistance. Will be held in the ZSR Auditorium on October 7th. Alaska Flood is the Hamas name for the October 7th attacks. Alaska is the mosque on top of the Temple Mount. It's very important prophetically. The Change.org petition created by Jewish students states that we, the undersigned members of the Wake Forest University community, are writing to express our strong concern and opposition of this event scheduled for October 7th with this speaker, a self-proclaimed Hamas sympathizer. This guy is a San Francisco State University professor who has publicly threatened Jewish students and has had similar events canceled due to violation of Zoom's, YouTube's, and Facebook's terms of service. She has also publicly supported and celebrated terrorists, some of whom are on the FBI watch list, as well as spreading blood libels about Jews. The event, titled 1 Year Since the Alaska Flood, Reflections on a Year of Genocide and Resistance, refers to the mission carried out by Hamas on October 7th, resulting in the most significant loss of Jewish life in a single day since the Holocaust. The title equates the murder, rape, and kidnapping of an innocent Jewish and Arab life on October 7th to resistance. The event is sponsored by Wake Forest University's Humanities Institute, Department of History, Department of Politics and International Affairs, Middle East, South Asian Studies Program, and the National Endowment for the Humanities. It is crucial that Wake Forest upholds its values and ensures that speakers who promote hatred and violence are not given a platform on our campus. Jewish student leaders have made several attempts to address these concerns with the administration, only to be dismissed. And all those agencies mentioned there are funded by the federal government and this current administration. So, but anyway, is it affecting? You know, it's funny that all of this stuff that's going against Israel, what do we see happening in Israel? Very prophetic that they seem to be getting stronger, but also becoming more religious. Now, we know that unless they find Jesus, that their religion is empty, but it does show that there are some shiftings in the psyche of the Jewish people. And this story right here, Jews in temple and worldwide mark Jewish New Year 5785 Feast of Trumpets as high holy days begin. All of this is happening this week during their New Year and the Feast of Trumpets. And Jews in Israel throughout the world are marking Yom HaTorah, or I don't know how to pronounce it, please forgive me if you're Jewish, or the Feast of Trumpets for the Feast of the Biblical Fall Feast, the first of the Biblical Fall Feast. It coincides with the start of the civil Jewish New Year, 5785, known in Hebrew as Rosh Hashanah, which began at sundown on Wednesday. The biblical Jewish New Year comes in the month of Nisan before Passover in the spring. The Lord told Moses just before the Exodus in Egypt that would be the first day of the week. The Feast of Trumpets celebrated this week has great biblical significance. It also so you see that they're celebrating, and of course, one of the things that's pretty amazing, the story that never goes away, is the Temple Mount, which is the second hand in Bible prophecy, you guys. And this is continuing. This has not stopped. And as a matter of fact, this worshiping on the Temple Mount by the Jews is growing to the point where now we're seeing kids up on the Temple Mount worshiping the Lord. Check this video out. And as you can see, the police officers are not doing anything. See, that's the status quo has changed on the Temple Mount. And you know, we don't see World War III starting because World War III is already going on. That's the whole point. What are they going to do more to Israel than they've already done? That's giving them boldness to go and practice their religion on the whole, what they consider the most sacred site in the world, and that's the Temple Mount. So it's pretty amazing. And but of course, here in the United States, we need to bring up some of the stories that won't go away for us, and that is, of course, the anti-Christian sentiment that's growing in the world. This week is is Tony Perkins' Pray, Vote, Stand Summit in Washington, D.C. And of course, there's a group that came, and as you can see, they brought a golden calf and put it on the grounds of Washington, D.C. as a protest against Tony Perkins. And this is what he had to say in an article. It says, the group so-called Faithful America said they did it to protest Family Research Council's Pray, Vote, Stand Summit, which starts tomorrow. Unwittingly, this was a prophetic act by this anti-Christian organization at this year's Pray, Vote, Stand Summit. I believe we will be tearing down idols and strongholds that have their grip on our nation, leading us down a path of spiritual and political destruction. In a statement about the display, the group's executive director, Nathan Impsall, claims that FRC is replacing Christ with Trump and is pledged to be a vengeful dictator on day one, and that we are embracing his conspiracy theories, cruelty, and January 6th style violence as far-right Christian nationalism. So, they resort to name calling. That's what they do every time. Tony Perkins, we don't agree with everything theologically he stands for, but he is a lobby group, which we support wholeheartedly. This group has come out against the Republican Party's platform that's been changed. They are lobbying against it. These people are, lobbying for our values in Washington, D.C., and that's a good thing. And these people, they see that as they don't see it correctly because they're liberal. They don't believe in the Bible the way we do. They don't believe in biblical principles, and so of course they're going to resort to name calling. This isn't the first time we've been accused of being Christian nationalists, nor it is the first time we've been protested. This claim couldn't be further from the truth. Since our founding in 1983, Family Research Council has always served an audience of one, God. We have always been beholden to biblical principles, not politicians or political parties. Even though this group claims that we are hijacking the Christian faith, the irony is, and the more accurately named Faithless America and their idol would have been better suited for the Democrat convention in Chicago, where, like the wayward Israelites offering up their children to Molech, Planned Parenthood performed nearly 24 abortions. So he's correct. That's the thing. Just because we're voting for the lesser of two evils, we're called we're making Trump in the place of Christ, which just couldn't be farther from the truth if anybody knows us and our lobby. And so, but what do we see going across the globe? This anti-Christian or in the name of Christ apostasy that we see. We shouldn't be surprised to see a story like this. Germany, 10,000 churches expected to close in the next decade. I mean, this is crazy. And we know that Europe is, America is not far behind Europe, you guys. So when you see stuff like this happening in Europe, which leads the West, it's coming to America. And so when it says, meanwhile, Muslim migrants continue to pour into Germany, we are witnessing a cultural and ethnic transformation of Germany and all of Europe, the likes of which has not been seen for over a millennium. Germany, 10,000 Catholic and Protestant temples expected to close in next decade. This is from the Evangelical Focus in September. The fall in membership of the two largest Christian institutions in Germany is forcing them to sell or demolish hundreds of temples or churches. According to an investigation of German newspaper, Roman Catholic temples and 444 worship places of the Evangelical Church of Germany have been disconsecrated, meaning that they would no longer be used for worship services. In the case of the Protestant Church, the buildings have been either sold or demolished. By 2033, every fourth or fifth church building will no longer be used for its original purpose, says architecture professor Stephanie Lieb. She believes this would mean in practice that 10,000 churches will no longer celebrate worship services. An example of this trend, reports Pro, is that the Diocese of Essen already announced in 2006 that it could no longer finance a third of the buildings. Many of these church buildings have been sold, and new owners use them for private businesses such as restaurants, fitness centers, or shops. So, turning them into a marketplace. And, if there's nobody to populate the church, A lot of this is because these denominations in the Catholic Church have gone apostate. We know that. But also it just shows that the heart of the West has turned away from God. And we know that. We've seen it been happening. And so it shouldn't surprise us. But one of the things that we've talked about earlier was, how the United States is saying, constantly saying they're going to sanction Russia. They're going to sanction China. They're going to sanction Iran. They're going to sanction. That's their form of diplomacy. And it's really just a political target to think that they're actually pressuring our enemies. But are they? Are they really pressuring our enemies? What are our enemies doing? Well, they're gathering together and forming their own thing. And we know that because they're forming BRICS. BRICS has been something we've been keeping an eye on. BRICS currency, it says 40% could be tied to gold, 60% in local currency. They just had a meeting recently, and they're continuing to meet to figure out exactly how are they going to finance this new currency that's going to be used between the BRICS nations, which are all, which is China and Brazil and Russia and Iran and Saudi and a lot of these different countries that are getting into this. And it says the BRICS alliance is looking to launch a new currency tied to gold along with a basket of local currencies. Backing the new currency with gold will help to end dependency on the U.S. dollar, and tying it with a basket of local currencies will boost the native tenders of emerging economies while developing nations stand to gain from the development. The U.S. economy and dollar will be beaten. The U.S. dollar runs on the supply and demand mechanism, and if it gains no demand in the global market, the U.S. dollar will face deficits. BRICS could equip its new currency with gold and a basket of local currencies and advance without the U.S. dollar. And so that's what's happening. And so the dollar has actually been removed from Saudi Arabia, has gotten away from the dollar to be used as trade in oil. We see a lot of things happening that people just don't understand. They're not listening because this stuff it's a trickle effect before it starts to affect us. But United States ability to use sanctions as a form of diplomacy has no power anymore. This is about a 2-minute video of Putin, and it's translated. You can hear the translation of it during the video, but you will hear him talk about the what they're doing with their economy, and you ask yourself as you watch this video, does it look like the sanctions are affecting Russia at all? So it's important that we listen to this.
We have another question on the financial infrastructure, the payments for the Russian exports. We have our own difficulties in this regard. To find solutions, we're using transactions in national currencies, and our partners are highly interested in such transactions. Sure, there are problems in this area as well. We understand that, but we're eventually overcoming them. The share of the Russian ruble in our foreign trade is approaching 40%. Since 2021 to 2023, the share of the Russian ruble in the transactions for our exports has increased almost threefold, up to 39%. In the first half of this year, this figure was at 39.4%. At the same time, as part of the cooperation within BRICS, we work to establish our own payment and transaction system, which would establish conditions for efficient and independent service for the entire foreign trade.
The thing that I find interesting is that, the first thing you can see is everybody's talking. There was all this talk about Putin's health. Well, watching that video, doesn't look like he's having any health problems at all, and that he can speak pretty clearly. And he's telling us exactly how well they're doing. And I don't think sanctions are having any effect on Russia at all, especially with their new relationship with China and all these things. But what's happening over here in the States? We have to understand that our economy isn't as shiny as the administration or the local news will let you think. Just because there's still money in our ATMs and that the banks still seem to be liquid doesn't mean that things aren't taking a possible turn. And this story here is kind of eye-opening here, and this is 63 central banks are implementing Basel III, which includes the widespread practice of bail-ins to rescue failing banks. Now, you might not quite understand what this means, and this means that when they implement this Basel III rule, means that they no longer have the liquidness or the money to supply all of their debts or all of their, I guess, all their accounts, all their deposits. They don't have enough money to cover all their deposits. So they're relying upon this government or this bail-in, which really makes the people that have accounts in the bank, you become part owner of the bank, but it doesn't matter. If the bank isn't worth as much as the money that you have in there, you'll never get back what you have put in there. And so it's kind of a weird thing that's happening. Yesterday, the Bank of International Settlements announced that its member jurisdictions have made significant progress in implementing the final elements of Basel III. Basel III includes wide acceptance of a bail-in as a way of rescuing failing banks. Unlike a bailout, which involves external assistance, often from taxpayers, a bail-in restructures the bank's liabilities internally, which includes taking the money you have on deposit and in savings accounts, as these form part of the bank's liabilities, and converting them from cash you can use into something else, like shares in the bank. In other words, it's a bailout by the taxpayers, but without the government as the middleman. As a depositor or saver, the bail-in conditions will not be negotiated with you, meaning that you have no choice in the matter. So, and a lot of these banks are in really deep trouble, and that's because the dollar no longer has the power. This is all trickle down from the world turning its back on the U.S. dollar and people trading in other currencies and Bitcoin and all these other things. And it's really on purpose. They're trying to destroy our dollar to bring about a digital currency, because a digital ID, one world digital currency is coming, whether we like it or not. It will come. And then, of course, this story is hilarious because the time that I put it onto the slide between then this story breaks, and then last night, this has all been solved. But the point is, there was a big port strike that ended last night. But this is what's happening in New York. New York Costco shoppers empty shelves in panic over port strike, no toilet paper or toilet paper towels, which is hilarious, which shows you the psyche of people. They don't understand. These products are made domestically. They don't come from overseas. Maybe some of them do, but for the most part, paper products are made here in the United States because we recycle our paper. I know here in the on the West Coast that most of all of our toilet paper and paper products are made here in the United States. So pretty funny that would be the thing that they would go after, you know. But of course that all ended last night. But it shows you how fast people panic from news that they hear. And then this is a story that has more details on it that I wanted to bring back up. I think I mentioned it a couple weeks ago, but it's still around. It's a story that never seems to go away, and that's George Soros. And why did George Soros buy 200 U.S. radio stations right before the election? And so this article goes on to say, billionaire George Soros is known for writing massive checks to Democrat candidates and funding a network of leftist dark money organizations under the disguise of his Open Society foundations, which gives money to churches, by the way. Even the SBC, many big denominations and big organizations like a bunch of them, World Vision and those, they take money from Soros and they actually allow them to come in. This Open Society foundations will bring people in to train pastors on how to be more, to be more liberal, basically. And so it's pretty amazing. And now, adding to his resume, he now owns hundreds of U.S. radio stations. The Federal Communications Commission approved a decision to allow Soros to purchase 200 Odyssey radio stations across 40 U.S. markets just weeks before the 2024 election, a move that has never been done before. This means the Democrat megadonor will be able to reach more than 165 million Americans as they begin to cast their votes. Under the Federal Communications Act, a radio station license can't be held by a corporation with more than 25% foreign ownership. Soros acknowledged that the level of foreign ownership of Audacity will exceed that. However, he still requested that the FCC expedite the approval of the application for ownership and bypass the foreign ownership review, which would allow them to quickly realize their ownership interest in and take the reins at these hundreds of local radio stations across the country. Commissioner Brenda Carr of the Federal Communications Commission warned the FCC not to go beyond its standard procedure and allow Soros to purchase the radio station. So I think that what's interesting about it is that the FCC is not following its normal process for reviewing transactions that it has established over a number of years. Carr says, it seems to me that the FCC is poised for the first time to create an entirely new shortcut, which of course it's going to do. It's a three-letter acronym, which is controlled by the deep state. So we shouldn't be surprised. So a little bit more information of what they pushed it through, and everybody knows that it wasn't normal and it should have never happened according to their own rules. But they went around it and went ahead and gave him an exception. Why? Because it's George Soros. The deep state loves George Soros, and so. But anyway, two stories broke on the same day this last week. And they're very important because it's showing you how they're shaping the opinion of the average person and preparing the country for another big steal. And you'll get the point when I say this. First thing that happened was it's really not new news, but it was just made public, some of the details in it. And that is this story here that judge unseals key finding in special counsel's election case against Trump. And it says Jack Smith's 165-page filing lays out alleged evidence he intends to use in an eventual trial against Trump. The U.S. District Judge for the District of Columbia, Tanya Chunkin, on Wednesday unsealed a key filing in special counsel Jack Smith's election case against former President Trump. This is kind of a way of that. This is what they call an October surprise. The other side is trying to make the other party look bad, so they unsealed this. And it says, and of course, this judge is a left-wing lunatic, okay? Chunkin unsealed Smith's 165-page filing after the special counsel submitted the document in which he lays out the case of alleged evidence he intends to use in an eventual Trump trial against Trump. Trump pleaded not guilty to all charges brought against him by Smith. In the filing unsealed Wednesday, Smith outlines a factual proffer alleging Trump resorted to crimes to stay in office after losing the 2020 presidential election. With private co-conspirators, the defendant launched a series of increasingly desperate plans to overturn the illegitimate election results, which were not legitimate. We know that, right? Okay, this is all lies, right? Results in 7 states that he had lost: Arizona, Georgia, Michigan, Nevada, New Mexico, Pennsylvania, and Wisconsin, Smith wrote. His efforts included lying to state officials in order to induce them to ignore true vote counts, manufacturing fraudulent electoral votes in the targeted states, attempting to enlist Vice President Michael Pence in his role as President of the Senate to obstruct Congress's certification of the election by using the defendant's fraudulent electoral votes when all else had failed. On January 6, 2021, directing an angry crowd of supporters to the United States Capitol to obstruct the congressional certification. So it's all a pack of lies, and we know that what they're doing is you tell a lie loud enough and long enough. We talked about this last week. How do we clean up all of the lies that people have been telling them? Tell them the truth over and over again. They don't like that. So they want to control the narrative. And of course, this October surprise, they put this out there so everybody knows that if you question the election in 2024, then you are going to be charged with a crime. That's what they want to do. They're setting the world up for the big steal of 2024. Don't think they won't do it again, you guys. Did they fix anything? I live in the state of California. We are forced to mail-in vote. We know that, and machine voting, and we know they haven't fixed any of it. I have people at our church that we're standing up against it. We're rallying the small group of people that we have to try to tell our county supervisors and electoral people to go back to one-day voting and in-person only, showing an ID. They just made it illegal in California for that. But you can see that they have never fixed any of it. And so they've done a good job trying to, but and that's why, you know, we can pray that God will bring enough people out to out-cheat the cheat or to expose the cheaters. But they're setting it up. They're already planning for it, and we see it right here. Here's a picture of one of the one part of the document here, and it says the defendant acted as a candidate when he pursued multiple criminal means to disrupt through fraud and deceit the government function by which votes are collected and counted, a function in which the defendant as president had no official role. So they're coming after him. This is what we call lawfare, right? And then the local news story came out the same day. I mean, this came out in the morning, not even by noon or 1 o'clock. Here's another story. And people that only watch KCRA, local Channel 3, or Fox News, or any of these channels, they're being fed a narrative. And what do? Oh, you know, to confirm the lies that this guy that's charging Trump is saying, they just come up with a story like this. What does voter fraud in the U.S. really look like? The data shows since 2016. There's no data. There is no voter fraud. You guys are just a bunch of conspiracy nuts. It says the terms voter fraud and election fraud have become frequently used phrases regarding the process of fair and free elections. We don't have that in the United States anymore. Raising questions about the integrity of the electoral process in the United States. During election cycles, the topic of fraud surges in conversations, especially surrounding the presidential election. This leads many people to assume voter fraud happens frequently or often. Setting aside any rhetoric and focusing slowly on the data surrounding voter fraud backs up this conclusion. With early voting underway and the general election only a month away, Hearst Television National Investigative Unit. Let's show you what that is. Hearst. Hearst. Can you trust Hearst? No, you can't trust these people. They are owned by the deep state, right? The analysis shows the frequency of voter fraud causes leading to criminal conviction or court actions in recent years, debunking common misconceptions about voter fraud and election. No significant impacts on presidential elections. And that's just because these are what's been convicted. How many cases were thrown out? How many judges said, we don't want to hear it? They had evidence, they had proof, and you know, Mike Lindell is spent his own fortune on lawyers, and constantly the judges are throwing it out of court. So, and they're only the data is going to show convictions, not if we put the data in there of the accusations and the cases that have been brought forth that have been thrown out, the numbers would be way greater. See, that they try to use data to spin the facts, and that's what they've been doing for a long time. It's all political. But if it's Hearst newspaper, you can know that it's not the truth. Okay, you guys. And so, but anyway, they're preparing for so, you know, it's not going to shock me. You know, people, what are you going to do if Trump doesn't win? But what I've always done, I'm not going to change who I am or what we do. We'll continue to point out the evil. We'll kind of show you the signs of the times. We know that we're one day closer to the rapture. We know the tribulation period is coming, and we know all these things have to come to pass. I'm not going to be anxious or worried or freak out. That, you know, people seem to think just because we vote for Trump and we're engaged politically and lobby our politicians that somehow or another our hope is in our political candidate. No, our hope is in Jesus Christ. We're just salt and light, and we're trying to delay the decay. But if the decay happens, I mean, the Lord, God's the one who's in control. You know, you just need to remember where our faith is at. But it's very interesting. I got somebody sent me an email with this link to this movie, and it's a Catholic movie, but it's got it's like, are they preparing people for what's coming? And I think it's very trippy. Here's a screenshot from the website. It's called The Great Warning. All will be revealed. And of course, it shows a Catholic nun with her thing, talking about mercy. And you can go watch the trailer of this. And here's the synopsis. You got to get this. This is coming out, I think, October 17th. This thing's going to be in the theaters, right? And it's a Catholic documentary type movie thing, docudrama thing. And it says, in a world where the inexplicable becomes reality, this documentary immerses us in the impactful experiences of people from different countries, unknown to each other, but united by a common destiny. Through dramatic and gripping accounts, these individuals reveal that they have lived through supernatural encounters linked to ancient prophecies and biblical passages. Their testimonies find with mystery and wonder converge to an alarming revelation. An event of unimaginable proportions is about to occur and will change the course of humanity forever. This documentary film invites us to question our perception of reality and warn us of an imminent future we cannot ignore. And I'm sure it has undertones of this traumatic event that's going to come that will actually unite the world under one religion and one thing. I'm not promoting the movie. I just thought it was very interesting that even the Catholic Church and there's everybody, Hollywood and everything, is preparing the world for the rapture of the church and the beginning of the day of the Lord. And I think one of this last story I found very interesting. And it takes us back to the Genesis 6 thing, and as in the days of Noah, which we'll talk about in a minute. But I just found this extremely fascinating. A Montana man gets 6 months in prison for cloning giant sheep and breeding it. People are doing this stuff in their garage, you guys. It's pretty crazy. An 81-year-old Montana man was sentenced Monday to 6 months in federal prison for illegally using tissue and testicles from large sheep hunted in Central Asia and the U.S. to create hybrid sheep for captive trophy hunting in Texas and Minnesota. The U.S. District Court Judge Brian Morris said he struggled to come up with a sentence for Arthur Jack Schubarth of Vaughn, Montana. He said he weighed his age and lack of criminal record with the sentence that would deter anyone else from trying to change the genetic makeup of these creatures on the creatures on the earth. Morris was fined. He fined him $20,000 and ordered him to make $4,000 payment to the U.S. Fish and Wildlife Foundation. He will be allowed to self-report to a Bureau of Prisons medical facility. And of course, he's repentant of what he did. But the point is this guy on his own, an 81-year-old man, went and figured out how to clone a sheep in his basement and then started breeding them for hunting. What are other people doing in labs in Reedley, California? Chinese labs in Reedley, California. What are they doing in the basements of the Pentagon? What are they doing over in the labs over in Ukraine? We know what they're doing, and we know that this is another sign that as Jesus said in Luke chapter 17, Jesus said, and as it was in the days of Noah, so it will be also in the days of the Son of Man. They ate, they drank, they married wives, they were given in marriage until the day that Noah entered the ark and the flood came and destroyed them all. Likewise, as it was also in the days of Lot, they ate, they drank, they bought, they sold, they planted, they built. But on the day that Lot went out of Sodom, it rained fire and brimstone from heaven and destroyed them all. Even so will it be in the day when the Son of Man is revealed. And then a little bit later, Jesus says, I tell you, in that night there will be two men in one bed. One will be taken and the other will be left. Two men will be grinding together. One will be taken and the other left. Two men will be in the field, one will be taken and the other left. And they answered and said to him, Where, Lord? So he said to them, Wherever the body is, there the eagles will be gathered together. A lot of people say this is not a rapture passage. But the point is that it was just where was Lot taken? Was Lot taken to judgment? No. Was Noah taken out of before the flood to judgment? No. He's already set it up. That Lot was taken to safety, and those left behind were judged. And so 2 men were in bed, 1 were taken. Has to be a rapture passage, because this isn't going to happen at the end of the tribulation period. There isn't going to be this instant separation where people disappear at a blink of an eye. And I find it very interesting where it says wherever the body is. Some translations say carcass. There's a different Greek word for carcass. So it isn't carcass, it's body. It's your body. Where the body is, there the eagles will be gathered together. I've seen some people say carrions or vultures. This word is Anglis. It is the word for eagle in the Greek language. And so it's where the body is. The eagle. Eagle's not a bird of prey. It's not out to hunt and eat. It's not going to eat dead flesh. So this is speaking about the rapture. And many early church fathers have been heard quoting this. So the point is as the story doesn't go away, as the story that never goes away continues to happen, we know these stories are going to continue to get more and more and more as the day approaches. And so we continue to look up and know that our redemption draws near, and take the time to let people know. If you're watching this, or our friends, our neighbors, we need to have an urgency to let them know that if you haven't gotten saved yet, if you're not born again, if you haven't received the free gift of salvation, you need to do it today. Don't waste any more time, because that day is coming very quickly. The story's not going to go away, you guys. Just as it was in the days of Noah. Israel it's not going away. It's going to continue to compound and increase until the day of the Lord begins. But before that, those that have placed their faith and trust in Christ will be gone. They're going to be taken, just like we just read. And so you need to be prepared for that by placing your faith and trust in Christ. He died for your sins. He provided a way for you to be forgiven of all your sins, past, present, and future, by receiving the free gift of salvation, by placing your trust in Him, that He died for your sins and He rose again from the dead. That's the gospel message. And by receiving that message, placing your faith and trust in Him, there's a transaction that happens. Your righteousness was placed upon Christ, which is unrighteousness, and you received the righteousness of Christ. And when you receive that, you also receive the gift or the sealing of the Holy Spirit, where you change from being the person you were to a new man. You are born again, and you will start to live for God even in these last days. And so I can't impress you enough to make sure that you have been saved, that you've placed your faith and trust in Christ. And for the rest of us, look up. Know that our redemption draws near. These stories are not going away. They're never going to go away. And they're going to continue to increase. And so, Lord, I just want to encourage you and thank you for watching this. Please like and share these updates if you can. And be in prayer as we are traveling with some of our contemporaries to go to the 7 churches of Revelation and some of the sites that Paul walked at and end up in Athens. We're going to start in Izmir and work our way around. And I'm just pray for us that not only will I learn a lot, but I also get some time to sit down with some of these guys and interview them. I have my phone. I DIY everything. So be in prayer. I got a little microphone thing and a phone, and we're going to try to do some videos on the trip. So be in prayer about that, and we can share those when we get back with you guys. And so we're excited about that. But just continue to know that Jesus is coming again soon, and that's our hope. And so thank you for watching this, and God bless you, and Maranatha. If you have been blessed by this podcast, please subscribe and share to help get the word out in these last days. If you'd like more information or to contact us, please go to calvarysolidground.com. God bless you, and see you next time on Apologetics and Prophecy.